So I'm Melissa Keneally, and this summer I interned in the quarantine department of the Georgia Aquarium. And I'm sure all of y'all are pretty familiar with the aquarium. It opened in 2005 thanks to generous donations from Bernie Marcus, the founder of Home Depot, and Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons. And with over 10 million gallons of water, it is the largest aquarium in the Western Hemisphere, and it houses tens of thousands of animals. So the purpose of quarantine is to make sure that all new animals that we get in are free of diseases before putting them into a tank with healthy animals, so before they go on exhibit where all of the fish have already been cleared of any wild parasites. And the goals of my internship were for me to be able to perform all of the tasks of an entry-level aquarist, like pretty much to be able to get a job as soon as my internship was over. So some of the skills and experience that was necessary for me to learn included obviously understanding quarantine procedures and why it was necessary, understanding various diseases and how to treat them, as well as water quality parameters and what to do if you have poor water quality, which included needing to know the nitrogen cycle, which was something I thought I would never need to know, and it's actually one of the most important things in the aquarist world, so that was really fun learning that again. I also had to understand tank setup and life support systems, which included mechanical, chemical, and biological filtration and the proper design for maximum efficiency with the tanks and the systems, as well as I obviously needed to have a general understanding of the animals that I was working with and how to take care of them. So every other week I would have a quiz just to make sure that I was keeping up with the material and that my bosses were keeping up with teaching me everything that I needed to know in a timely manner. And so I didn't just work with fish, I worked with invertebrates, reptiles, amphibians, which was really cool because I didn't have a whole lot of experience with herpetology going into this, so that's really interesting to me. And every day when we would get there in the morning, we would collect water quality samples from all of our tanks and send them off to the lab for analysis. And the parameters that we were looking at were ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, pH, salinity, dissolved oxygen, phosphate, iodide, and temperature. And then we would get the results back in the afternoon. There are a few things you could do if you had poor water quality. If you had high ammonia, nitrite, or nitrate, you just do a full water change, just because you can't add any chemicals to get rid of that. You just need clean water. But if you had pH or alkalinity problems, you could add chemicals. Like if you were trying to raise your pH, you would add bicarbonate and carbonate. And if you were trying to lower your pH, you would add a chemical called monobasic. And then for alkalinity, if your alkalinity was low, you would just add bicarbonate, carbonate, and calcium. And some other things you could do, you could clean out your mechanical or chemical filters, which were like filter mats, filter bags, and a protein skimmer, which it took the organics out. The water would go through the protein skimmer and take organics out the water, so all of the detritus that got into the system would be filtered out through that. And you could also stir your biological filter, which housed sand that the water would pass over, and it had the nitrifying bacteria in it that would fix the ammonia and nitrite. So you would want that to be running smoothly, and sometimes it could start to get channels where the water was only passing through certain parts of the sand, so it wasn't working as efficiently. And whenever we would get new animals in, we would have to acclimate them. The most important water quality parameters are temperature, pH, and salinity when we get them in. So they come in a bag or a tank of water, and you can't just throw them into a new tank of water because the pH could be off by 1 or 2, salinity could be off by 5 ppt, and those animals are going to go into shock. They're going to go into shock anyways, being handled that much. So you want to match the water quality as best as you can. So we would do a slow water drip from the tank into the bag that they came in. And once they were acclimated, they would get an entrance exam, which included a skin scrape, gill clip, and caudal or tail fin clip. And we did this by putting the animals into a smaller tank that had anesthesia in it. And then the vets would take those clips and look under the microscope for any diseases. And if any diseases came up, we would have to treat them with the appropriate medication, which when you're adding medication to tanks, you're usually adding for a treatment of like 5 days or a week or something, so you have to add it really slowly because you're adding so much medication at one time that you can't just dump it all in there. So every day we would check the animal's health and administer this medication. And then there were also some animals that were more intelligent, like the octopi, that needed enrichment. So whenever we would feed them, we would put their food into toys like a hamster ball or a Kong and give it to them that way, so that they would have to open up these toys in order to get their food. And then these were some of the animals that I got to work with. If you see the top and bottom left pictures are baby weedy sea dragons, which is really cool. Very few aquariums in the world have had successful reproduction of them, and that was pretty much my little project this summer. I got to research the food and development of them and help raise them. And then the top right picture is a bowmouth guitarfish, and I got to help come up with the diet for her and help target train her. Target training is pretty much you have a board that's a certain color and might have like a circle on it or something that you stick into the water, and the animals learn to associate that with food and come up to that target whenever they're getting fed, so you can do like a brief health check and also monitor how much food they're getting. And then in the bottom middle, that's a Euromastix lizard. He's really cool, and I got to help come up with his diet and care plan. They were surprisingly one of the most social animals that I worked with. Every time you came up to feed them, they would run up to the front of the tank, and sometimes I would open it up and they would leap out onto me. They were adorable. And then also I got to shadow the Ocean Voyager department, so that picture, the middle right, and I got to help feed the whale sharks and the manta rays and various different stingrays. It was really cool. So the courses that I've taken that I thought were helpful, I hadn't taken many of my major courses before my internship, but still general and organic chemistry were really helpful for basic lab techniques and actually understanding the water quality parameters, which for smaller aquariums, they want you to be able to understand all these water quality parameters and run the tests yourself and be able to take care of them, because not every aquarium is like the Georgia Aquarium with millions of dollars to have somebody just interpret all this for you and do all the chemical additions for you like the other departments. So that was helpful, as well as biology for just understanding basic biological processes. But the courses that I'm taking now or later on in my college career that I think are really helpful, aquatic biology, ecology of natural resources, and soils and hydrology are really helpful for just understanding the ecological processes and specific knowledge of aquatic habitats and the organisms in there, and how chemistry relates back to all of that, as much as nobody wants to actually learn chemistry or use chemistry. And then wildlife diseases is obviously a helpful one when you're working with a bunch of sick fish. And marine biology, ichthyology, and fish physiology is helpful for just more detailed knowledge and understanding the environment that you're going to be working with. Any questions?